I know that your team sucks and mine is great. It's time for AFFL hate. Gonna make them pissed, gonna make them mad. I'm gonna do them dirty. It's the AFFL Week 5 review. That's right, everybody. Shh. Daddy's back. I'm back. Now look, I admit, Daddy had to go away for a little bit, think about what was going on, think about if I really wanted to be a part of this family at 1-3, and while I was gone and my team won, I realized that I do love you, and that we're a great family, and that I want to be here, and that also at this point, with inertia, it's just easier to stay in the league than to quit this league and go out and look for another younger, firmer league. It's just a lot of work to go through all of that, and it's probably in the end not worth it. So, yeah, you guys are good. It's not your fault. It was just, I needed a little hungry heart time for myself. Just needed to get away. And I needed that win last night because, let me tell you, watching the Isis win 81.6 to 76.8 was just the tonic I needed. Now the Isis, the third highest scoring team in the league, gets all the way up to 2-3. That record's good enough to get me into the Central Division. And let me tell you, if I would have lost this game because Calvin Johnson, for the second week in a row, had under 3 points based on an injury. But the thing is, if he's playing, they say he's playing, who is going to take Calvin Johnson out of the lineup? So, had they said he was skipping this game, I might have put in Justin Hunter, who had 15.9 points on a big 75-yard touchdown. And of course, because I had started Justin Hunter in week 2 and he busted, I was guaranteed to not have his points in the lineup when he finally broke up. Or how about this? This week I dropped the Bills defense for the Bengals defense. 2 units about equivalent, both are pretty good, but the Bengals just had their bye in week 4, meaning that I can lock up a defense for the rest of the season and not have to worry about it. That's smart. That's playing the game right. That's working Gary's system the correct way. Lo and behold, the Bills defense has 12 points this week. The Bengals defense had minus 5 points this week, a 17-point swing. And part of the reason that the Bengals had minus 5 and the Patriots had 12 is because Brandon Tate fumbled a kickoff return that the Patriots picked up and ran in for a touchdown. When was the last time you saw that? Probably 5 years ago. If I would have lost on that play, you really may have never seen me again. But all's well that ends well. Eddie Lacy comes through with 25 big points. A.J. Green caught a late touchdown, 13 points. Alshon caught another touchdown, 15 points. Colin Kaepernick, only 12. But here's the thing about Kaepernick. He may not be dynamic every week. He's probably not going to have one of those 28-point games like Peyton Manning would. And I probably am overrating Colin Kaepernick, but he has a good floor. The guy puts up double digits every single week. And you know what? He's at the same amount of points so far this year as one Breeze, Drew. As for Gary, another great game for Andrew Luck, 17.6 points. A lot of those points coming late. Luck had about 5 points for most of this game. Then he kicked it into gear. And Andrew Luck, maybe the greatest college signing in the history of this league. The other might have been A.J. Green. I know Christian had him, so we got to give Christian some credit there. But Gary, getting Andrew Luck and then franchising him, very forward-thinking. Great move by Gary to get Luck ahead of the draft, because Gary in the draft, not so good. Bishop Sankey, 2.7 points in the starting lineup. Toby Gerhart, 2.9 points on the bench. Cordero Patterson, 0.8 points on the bench. Julius Thomas, though, 18.6 points. And 2 bonus points for blowing up Calais Campbell's knee. Those were Gary's first 4 picks, and right now only Thomas is doing anything. Pete Garçon, only 2.3 points last night. And let me tell you, you don't know how stressful it is to watch an entire game, trying to find where Pierre Garçon is in the formation before every snap, and then looking at Kirk Cousins' head to see if he's looking in that direction, to see if I need to panic about a deep touchdown. That was exhausting. I felt like I was watching the All-22, like one of those sports writers were like, when I was watching the tape, what jumped out at me was that Pierre Garçon only had 2.3 points last night. Edelman only 3.5. Terrence Williams caught a garbage touchdown. Romo with a great scramble, then just heaves it up. Williams was there for the touchdown. I also would have been mad if I had lost that one. But ISIS won. All is well again. I love you guys. So happy to see your smiling faces. ISIS 2-3. Lethbrecht 2-3. Timmy doesn't have any friends. 96.5. Riggins Riggs 84.3. Clearly, Scott is the better owner in this matchup. He had more points this week. He has the better record overall. And yeah, Riggins Riggs has the most points against so far this season. But hey, that's just how it goes, you know. You play these head-to-head matchups, which everybody loves so much. You know, the fates are going to tease us just a little bit. Now, sure, if we went to the system where every team played every other team every week, Riggins Riggs would be the number 4 team in the league. ISIS would be the number 3 team in the league. Lethbrecht would be the number 2 team in the league. And all 3 of those teams are currently 2-3. And, yeah, the 4-1, it's always running in Philadelphia team would be just about last in the league with their 21-34 record. But nobody wants that but me, and maybe right now Riggins Riggs, so I'm not going to keep harping on it. Anyways, great win for Scott. Scott's great, one of the best owners in the league, without question. We should all admire the things that he does. As for this game, Drew Brees, 14.3 points. Let's take a quick break and say, would this game have been the same if Scott didn't make the trade for Drew Brees? I say yes, again, on a technicality, because Geno Smith got benched with 0.8 points. So obviously, if Scott started Geno, he would have lost this game. But I still say Scott would have kept Phillip Rivers, which would have been the smart move. He definitely wouldn't have traded Rivers for Torrey Smith and Torrey Smith's 3.8 points this week, including a big drop late in the game when the Ravens needed to pick up a 4th down. He would have kept Rivers. Rivers had 19.9 points. Scott would have done even better this week. Nevertheless, Marshawn Lynch, 17.7 points. That was a great trade. Kendall Wright, 21 points. Wow. 43 rushing yards, 2 cheap touchdowns. Kendall Wright must be great. I guess I was wrong all this time. Eddie Royal, only 4 points. So maybe Royal and Wright are just guys that have, fluke up and down days. I don't know. Torrey Smith again, 3.8 points. Marty B, 1.7. Steven Gostkowski, 19 points. That's absurd for a kicker. The Steelers, late defensive touchdown gives Scott 15 points. Also let the Steelers cover this game. By the way, Jacksonville had been blown out every other game this year, and the Steelers needed a late pick 6 to clinch this one. I'm sure that's not a concern for anyone at all. So Barker loses to 2 Kendall Wright touchdowns. 21 points from Wright this week, even though he only had about 24 points total on the season before this. A kicker scoring almost 20, and a defensive touchdown. Eli, not as good as he was last week against the Redskins. Little surprised he didn't do better against Atlanta, only 14 points. Matt Forte, great game against Carolina, 21 points. Jordy got that touchdown, but Steve Smith, he must have used it all up last week in his revenge game against Carolina, only 2.4 here. Dez, a couple of great catches, 14.5 points. Jimmy Graham goes out early with an injury, only 3.6 points. So Scott moves to 3-2. He is great. Nobody can deny it. And if he just can get back his franchise player, Adrian Peterson, this season, maybe Scott could do things. I'm sure this new news that Adrian Peterson's charity was a sham that never actually made donations and was funding sex orgies between Peterson, his brother, and 4 women that led to another domestic dispute in which the cops were called to a hotel, will have no effect on the Vikings bringing him back. Or another way to look at it is that Adrian Peterson definitely won't be playing this season. Moving on. Ass Tanner, 81.9. The Whitechapel Rippers, 51.8. Ass Tanner moves to 2-3 in the season. Whitechapel drops to 3-2 on the season. And here's why I don't like this win, besides the reason that Whitechapel has suddenly dropped 2 in a row and is flailing. Matt Stafford only 10 points. With Calvin out, Stafford can do nothing at all. Gio and Doug Martin, 7 points apiece. Julio, Emmanuel, 10 points apiece. Larry Donnell, a 0. What a surprise! The week after he catches 3 red zone touchdowns, he puts up a 0. Who saw that coming besides everyone? But anyways, Ass Tanner made a couple of moves on Friday, and of course, like most moves from Christian, they were a little questionable, maybe well-intentioned, but he cuts Chris Johnson. Okay, that's smart. That makes a lot of sense. He franchises Russell Wilson, who, by the way, goes out and rewards that faith from Christian with 32.9 points last night, 122 rushing yards. So pretty good fantasy quarterback, getting better. For a while it looked like he was going to be another Roethlisberger, better in real life than in fantasy, but he's putting up a lot of points lately. So Christian, hey, you look like you're in good shape here. You franchised Wilson. He's super cheap. This was a smart move. Way to go. You've done something good. And then he goes out and he trades Tony Romo, Marcus Colston, and Chris Ivory for Jay Cutler, Stephen Ridley, and T.Y. Hilton. Now, these guys are roughly equivalent. Cutler and Romo, by the end of the season, they'll probably be within 10 points of each other, or maybe Cutler's a little bit better. Hilton might be a little bit better than Colston at this point, but not significantly, not a big win there. And then Ivory might actually be a better bet than Ridley, because Ivory, you can count on him every week. Ridley, you don't know what's going to happen. He could put up 18, he could put up 2. So, kind of trading guys from the same bucket for each other. And then Chris gives up a first-round pick for the privilege of making a meaningless trade. A pick that is almost certainly 99.9% Ivory soap guaranteed, going to be a lottery pick in 2015. So you've gotten rid of your franchise deadweight. That was smart. You promoted a quarterback to your franchise spot, and that quarterback is super cheap. That was smart. Then you go out and give up next year's lottery pick for another quarterback who may or may not be better than the guy you just franchised, and then 2 guys who are equivalent to what you give away. It makes no sense. Chris seems to be indicating that he can compete this year and put a team together and really do some stuff, and Jay Cutler was the missing piece. Or maybe T.Y. Hilton, who doesn't have a touchdown this year. Is that... I'm still looking at LeGarrette Blount, Darren Sproles, John Brown, Matt Asiata on this roster. I don't get it. It makes no sense. I get that luck plays a role in this league, But as I told little Brian Barker via email last night when we were discussing the ridiculous uselessness of this trade, as it said in a fortune cookie I once got, luck is luck, but dumb is dumb. And this trade made no sense. I admire Christian's optimism that he can compete this year, but I admire it in a way I would admire a child thinking they can dunk a basketball. Hey, I'm glad, you see the sunny side of things, but it's actually not going to happen. And you've given up your lottery pick for next year. And, oh, by the way, Wilson outscored Jay Cutler by 12 points this week. Stephen Ridley, 17 points, gashing the Bengals defense. Do not be fooled by that. He will have 3 points next week. Matt Asiata, 6. Percy Harvin, 3. He did have 3 touchdowns called back by penalties last night, as we all saw. Would have been amazing and hilarious if Christian lost because of that, but Larry could not hold up his end of the bargain. Victor Cruz, 2.2 points. He is awful this year. And the Eagles' defense somehow had 15 points, even though they are probably the worst defense in the league. And right now it's gotten to the point where every quarterback that plays against them, and I'm talking about glamour names like Austin Davis and Chad Henne, put up amazing games. But when you have 2 defensive touchdowns, you're going to do okay. 375 passing yards allowed, 125 rushing yards allowed, 500 yards of offense allowed by the Eagles' defense. They still put up 15 because of 2 defensive special teams touchdowns. I'm sure there was no luck at all involved right there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new single game champion. Hagak, 150.6. That kangaroo stole my ball. 54.6. Hagak moves to 3-2 on this season. Bry moves to 2-3 on this season. I almost feel like they should be 4-2 and 2-4. This game should have counted for 2 wins and 2 losses. That's how brutal this was. Most points scored in a single game now belongs to Hagak. Largest margin of victory, 96 points, now belongs to Hagak. The silver lining for Bry, as I always say, if you're going to lose anyways, because the other guy is an absolute Category 5 hurricane, don't waste one of your good weeks on it. And Bry certainly listened to that advice. Only 54 points. Lucky for Bry, he didn't put up 110 and lose to 150. He actually sucked all around. Nick Foles, 13.2 points. Foles not really holding up his end of the bargain lately. 13 points this week, 2.6 last week. Both of those games, Cam was on the bench and outscoring Foles. So you know what that means. Cam goes into the starting lineup in week 6, and Foles outscores him from the bench. Rashard Jennings, only 7.2 points. Should have had a great game against the Falcons, but he got hurt again. What does it matter? Zach Stacy, 6.8 points. He got hurt in that game, too. Crabtree, 1.6. Where's he been all year? Brandon Marshall, 4.4. He's kind of banged up still. Antonio Brown held down 8.4 points. But again, what does it matter? It doesn't matter at all that Bryce Bench had 48 points compared to his starting lineup's 54 points. Tony Romo, new quarterback for Hagak, 16.8 points on the bench. Just about as good as Cutler. Cutler had 20 points. Romo had 16. What's the difference? But Phillip Rivers, 19.9 points, outscores Cutler. Arian Foster, what a game. 29.2 points against Dallas. Came out flying, got into the end zone very easily. DeMarco, 18.2 points. Hagak's week was so good that in a 20-17 game that didn't have that much action in it, he got 47 points from the 2 starting running backs. Golden Tate, 19 points. You might think with Calvin out or hobbled, some of the coverage would rotate over to Golden Tate, but no, he is going off. 134 receiving yards and a touchdown. What a great game for him. He's been awesome all year. Great pickup there. Mark Colston, only 6.3, but whatever. He's a throw-in in that trade. Happily take a first-round pick, a lottery pick in exchange for putting Colston on my bench. Demaryius Thomas, 34.6 points, 226 receiving yards, a Broncos franchise record, 2 receiving touchdowns, one of which went for 86 yards. What a game there. It's a real shame that McCamey is going to lose Thomas at the end of the season. But here's the good news. With Christian's lottery pick, he might be able to redraft him. He might not even have to worry about this whole thing. Do I cut Foster as my franchise player and try to franchise Demaryius now? Do I do it now so Demaryius' salary doesn't go up too high? Next year, he's only $1.10 now. If I wait till week 9, he goes up to, something like $1.50 next year. Then it's not as much value as there would be before, so maybe I make this move now, but Foster's not hurt yet. Really would need Foster to get hurt to make this move and feel comfortable about it. I don't kind of have the guts to pull this off myself. But anyways, like I said, he's going to take that number 5 pick from Christian and probably just redraft Demaryius next year. Isn't that lovely? The Packers defense, which has been terrible all season, but not as terrible as Christian Ponder has been all career. 17 points from the Packers defense. Hey, when it works, and for Hagak, it worked this week. What a game. Little baby Jesus, 91.9. It's always runny in Philadelphia, 64.4. With yet another below-average game, the team with the second fewest points in the entire league drops to 4-1 on the season. Matt Ryan outdoors, we know that's not going to work. 12.5 points. Kirk Cousins, 17.8 points on the bench. What a tease. Let me just remind you, even going up against that great Seahawks defense, I've been in betting pools and I've been in picks pools for a few years, and the one thing I can tell you is Monday night home dogs have a little bit of special juice. I would not be fooled by this Cousins game. Let me see another good one next week. Shady McCoy, only 7.6 points there. There's a little talk from Little Barker last week about how, even though his team clearly sucks so far and he's only been lucky and not good, and that's why he's 4-0, that we should fear that team because McCoy hasn't gotten going. Here's the problem. Eagles have gone through their top 8 offensive linemen so far, and McCoy is healthy. It's not like McCoy's dinged up. He's fine. It's the line that's dinged up. So I don't know how he's going to get going with most of those linemen missing significant time. On the other hand, and I've gotten about 7 points total out of Calvin Johnson the last 3 weeks. So when he comes back, he gets that ankle healthy, and I hope he takes a couple of weeks off. When he's back and he's feeling good for the playoff run, and I'm putting up, 80, 90, 100 points a week without Calvin doing anything at all, who do you think you should really fear? Ahmad Bradshaw, 7.5. Frank Gore, 10. Could have been better if he got in the end zone. DeAndre Hopkins, highly skilled player, only 6 points. Reggie Wayne, only 7. Brandon McManus, new kicker for Denver. Welcome back to always running in Philadelphia, 11 points. That Jets defense, 1 point. But hey, That's pretty good when you get shut out 31-0. As for little baby Jesus, they are suddenly 3-2, and my preseason prediction that they win their division is not looking so ridiculous all of a sudden. Andre Ellington, 26.4 points, and I don't know if you saw the receiving touchdown he scored, but basically, Cardinals lost Drew Stanton to an injury, and they were down to their third quarterback, rookie Logan Thomas. So Ellington goes out of the backfield on one of those sideline wheel routes. He's totally covered. The linebacker's there, but not looking. Logan Thomas figures, heck, I'm a rookie, what do I know? I'm just going to throw it anyways. He threads it into Ellington. The linebacker doesn't see the ball coming, and then there's a downfield block from, I think, Michael Floyd, and Ellington just takes it the rest of the way. Crazy play. Can't believe it worked out. Big points there. 15 points alone on that play for little baby Jesus. Aaron Rodgers, 17 points. Great job there. Reggie Bush, only 4 points. Kind of disappointing considering he was the main man with Joik Bell out, but then he got hurt in this game. Keenan Allen, 2.5 points. New pickup Travis Kelce, he got back in the end zone. 7.5 points. And Gronk, 16 points. That's right, little baby Jesus went to the strong set, 2 tight ends, and they still won this game. Chargers defense, 11 points. Feel like they should get a little more with the shutout, but no bonus points there. Now, knowing Brian Barker and his inability to deal with the reality of his team, he's probably going to look to his bench, which scored 85 points this week, which is even more impressive considering that Eric Decker on the bench had a 0. He's going to look and say, hey, my bench scored 85 points when my starting lineup only had 64 points. But you're telling me you're going to put Brian Quick in the starting lineup week in and week out, and that you think he's going to put up 20 points week in and week out? You're going to put Greg Olsen in the starting lineup next week and get another 19 points out of him? And why are you sitting Vincent Jackson? Mike Glennon is good. Vincent Jackson had 14 points, all off of yards. Didn't even need a touchdown. Steven Jackson, 13 points. He got in the end zone. I wouldn't count on that every week either. So little baby Jesus moves to 3-2, but they are technically in last place in the Eastern Division, the entirety of which is 3-2. They're in last place right now because on the division tiebreaker and the points for tiebreaker, they lose those tiebreakers. Whitechapel maintaining their division lead thanks to their 3-0 division record, but they're going to have to right the ship to keep control here. And of course, it's always Runny maintains their division lead at 4-1, even though they have the fewest points for in the entirety of the Western Division. Animal House, 73. Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, 66.4. Sigmund and the Sea Monsters drops to 1-4 on the season, even though they have more total points this season than Runny in Philadelphia does. They only put up 66, with Peyton putting up 28 of that himself, 479 yards, 4 touchdowns. What a game for Peyton. Moneyball, he sucks, and he got hurt. He's going to miss a few weeks, 1.8 points. Timmy, in his infinite wisdom, decided to start Isaiah Kroll, even though the talk was that with Ben Tate back, Kroll, at best, would be part of a 3-man rotation in the Browns' backfield. He put up 1.9 points, whereas on the bench, Deshaun Jackson had 21.7 points. Had Deshaun Jackson been in the starting lineup over Kroll, Timmy would have won this game. And yes, I get it, the Seahawks defense is fearsome, and yes, the Washingtons did have an extremely terrible game last Thursday, but, we have to look at the bigger picture. Road teams on Thursday night games this week have been blown out every time. And as I said, Monday night home dogs have a little juice. And if anybody can get deep and break that Seahawks coverage, it's going to be a guy like Deshaun Jackson. He doesn't do his work close to the line of scrimmage where the Seahawks eat things up. He can break deep every once in a while, and he sure did. Ruben Randall, 9.3 points. Kelvin Benjamin, totally shut down by Kyle Fuller, 2.8 points. Michael Floyd has not gotten going so far this season. Only a 0.7. What is up with that? Oh, that's right. Drew Stanton and Logan Thomas are what's up with that. Timmy at 1-4 now has the inside line at the first overall pick in 2015, and that's great for the rest of the league because we can tell Tim the draft starts at 7:30. The rest of us know it actually starts at 8. We don't sit around waiting for Tim to make his first round pick. That's a win-win all around. As for Animal House, 73 points. Got a little lucky with the scheduling this week. 73 points, not a lot. A lot of teams they would have lost to. But Tom Brady had 19. Boy, he was all fired up. It's not that I believe the talk that they would bench or trade Brady this season, but he still hasn't been good. This was the all-in game for the Patriots. Let's see if it lasts. Le'Veon Bell, 11.8 points. That's actually a disappointing effort for him. Jamal Charles, 8.4. Once again, Andy Reid blames himself for not getting the ball to Charles enough in the second half. Kansas City loses a game that was close that they could have won. I believe Andy had this conversation with himself about 3 weeks ago. Nice to see that he already forgot about that. Jerick McKinnon, only 4.6 points on Thursday night. Roddy White, 2.6. Falcons outdoor, it's no good. You get him for about half a season. Jeremy Maclin, 13 points. Yet another touchdown for Maclin. Seahawks defense, people must have been chomping at the bit for this one against Washington, but only 5 points out of them. Not a big deal. But they still get the win. Good for Animal House. They move on to 3-2. So there you have it. I'm back. I'm feeling good. I know I'm only 2-3, but I'm going to say this. I am going to make the playoffs this season. Until Friday, my friends.